Hey World Wide Web, this is Shootin Lefty. I've finally gotten around to doing my follow-up review of the Mossberg MVP Patrol in 5.56. In my previous video, you'll see that I had a few issues with the rifle and had to send it back into Mossberg. So in this video, we will review Mossberg's customer service, and then we will do a very thorough review of the rifle itself. As a reminder, the three issues that I had with the rifle were: first, the bolt came apart from the bolt lever. There was a poor solder job here, and these two pieces came apart there at that seam. The wobbly bolt and bolt lever, I think, led to this corner getting chipped and all the way down, chipped off the finish. And the third issue that I had was a very poor fit of the magazine into the magazine well. I sent the rifle off to Mossberg, no problems, no questions asked, free of charge. They got it back to me in the time they said that they would. They addressed the bolt, they did a great job on the finish, and they really didn't do much for the magazine poor fit. They basically took their Mossberg magazine and gave me a Magpul magazine, a better fit, but I still had to farmer fix it with this rubber stopper in between the front of the trigger guard and the rear of the magazine to wedge in there and create a tighter fit. When Mossberg sent me my rifle back, I took it out for some test firing and found that it was having a problem with about 35% failure to fire. It didn't matter what rounds I used. I tried about 4 different rounds, and consistently with every brand of rounds, it was about 35% failure to fire. So I had to send the rifle back a second time to Mossberg. I would have preferred to swap out the bolt entirely, but that was not an option with Mossberg. So, same as the first time, they got my rifle back to me in the time that they said they would, about 4 to 6 weeks. And it seems this time they fixed the bolt. I have not had any issues with it since, after about another 400 rounds through it. As far as the magazine well problem, Mossberg doesn't offer a fix. So again, I had to create this farmer fix by swapping out the rear action screw for a longer one, sanding the rubber stopper, wedging it between the front of the trigger guard and the rear of a magazine to create a better fit. A shorter magazine like this, 10 round, doesn't really need the wedge in there. It fit better, especially the Magpul. But once you want to use a, say, 30 round magazine, there was a lot of play from the weight of the rounds, and the magazine would fall backward a little bit, and that would cause feeding issues to where the rounds would get stuck on the feed ramp and not chamber. So the wedge was pretty necessary to push the magazine forward to where the rounds can chamber more correctly. So I think Mossberg's customer service was good. Everything was free of charge, including the shipping. I would have preferred a new bolt, but everything is fixed. So let's review the rifle now by some categories that I think will be most complete. First is the concept or intended purpose. Second is the form or design of the rifle. Third will be the function. Fourth will be the durability or battle readiness of the rifle. And last will be the overall value. The concept or intended purpose of this rifle is to be a scout rifle that accepts AR-15 magazines in 5.56 versus a normal scout rifle in 308. The smaller, lightweight bolt-action design of the rifle makes it more manageable for trekking longer distances or in tougher terrain. The fact that it's in 5.56 allows you to carry more ammunition. I would say it's good for varmint hunting, target shooting, or just plinking out on some desert hikes. The next category that we'll discuss will be the form or design of the rifle, with some subcategories, the first of which will be design flaws. The first obvious major design flaw is the poor magazine fit in the magazine guide, as Mossberg calls it. I call it a magazine well. My farmer fix of the wedge in there has alleviated a lot of the problem, but the magazine guide is made of plastic. This entire insert is plastic, and I just don't think that you can get the precision measurements needed as you could with a piece of machined aluminum. The second design flaw of the rifle is minor but should have been avoided. It's this angle here at the back of the receiver. When you're charging the bolt forward, then this angle hammers wear into the front of the bolt lever, and you can see right here how this corner has been hammered down and there's a nice shine there. Cosmetical, yes. Totally avoidable, absolutely. The third design flaw of the rifle, and I'm not a gun expert, I'm only a gun enthusiast. To me, this seems like a flaw. The rear action screw can be over-tightened and it will go up into the receiver. I had to remove it to put on my farmer fix wedge, but the rear action screw needs to be removed as well as the front action screw if you want to adjust the trigger. And there's a hole in the receiver where you can over-tighten it and cause wear to the bottom of your bolt, or you can even tighten it so much that will lock the bolt. The last design flaw that I noticed was the magazine release lever. It feels a bit too small and it's very stiff. When you have a magazine in there, it can actually almost hurt trying to get the leverage to release the magazine. I have other bolt-action rifles, and they're in the same location, but they just seem to be a little bit smoother edge and easier to manipulate. The next talking point in the category of form and design is a subcategory of design qualities. Probably my favorite is the trigger. Mossberg calls it their LBA, or lightning bolt action trigger. It is adjustable from 2 pounds to 7 pounds, set at 2 pounds at the factory. It has the Glock trigger setup with the safety lever in the middle of the trigger that gives you an auxiliary safety. When it is protruding, you know the gun is cocked, and when the gun is not cocked, then it will be flush on the trigger. It has a really smooth action and a real good click that you feel when you squeeze the trigger. In a moderately priced rifle, I think it's an excellent trigger. The second design quality that I like about the rifle is the 16.5-inch medium weight barrel. It is free-floated, chrome lines. You can expect out of this barrel what you would out of your decent quality AR-15 barrel. It does have front and rear sights on the barrel. The rear sight is adjustable for windage and elevation if you have a tiny screwdriver. And the front sight has the fiber optic, which is nice for target acquisition. Obviously, here it has the AR-15 style bird cage, whatever, but it gives you an option for a easy upgrade. The next design quality that I like about the rifle is that it comes with this rail above the receiver. It's approximately 5 inches, and it's just convenient for a quick and easy scope mount. The fourth design quality that I really like about the rifle is that it accepts AR-15 magazines. Now, despite the issues with the poor magazine fit in the magazine guide, which will hopefully be ironed out by Mossberg, the benefit of using AR-15 magazines is undeniable. You have the different round capacities for whatever you want, 30, 20, 10. They're accessible and cheap and interchangeable with an AR-15. So when I go out with my wife, we can both use the same magazines, her in this bolt action, me in my AR-15. And the fact that 5.56 is lighter than 308 means that we can carry more ammo. As long as we're mentioning design qualities, I feel obligated to talk about the scope. Certainly it's not the rifle, but I have to give props to Nikon. This is their Nikon P223. It's 3/9 by 30 if I'm not mistaken. It is a great scope for the price. I think it's about $150. It has really clear glass, a simple BDC or bullet drop compensation reticle for quick acquisition out to 600 yards. It's specific to 223 or 5.56. The elevation and windage knobs have caps that you can take off, and when you find zero, put them back down to where you have a clear marking of zero, which for somebody like me who's not a gun genius, it makes it really convenient to re-find zero after adjusting for a windage or elevation change. Also worth mentioning is Nikon's P-Series scope mounts. It automatically sets your scope to the correct height, and it has a see-through archway so you can still use your iron sights even when your scope is mounted. I think that's really well thought out, and it's very convenient. The next category for review is the ergonomics of the rifle. Now, this is my wife's rifle, but as I'm posting as Shooting Lefty, I feel obligated to mention that it does not come with a left-handed bolt. It is only available as a right-handed bolt action rifle. Other than that, the rifle has a very good feel. It is compact at 36.5 inches long, including the bird cage, with a 9-inch buttstock to the hand grip or 13-inch to the back of the trigger guard. That allows you to bring it in closer to the body, which is nice for a petite person like my wife. All the working parts, the trigger, bolt lever, safety switch, bolt stop lever, they're all easily accessible and in good location with the exception of the magazine release lever, which was a little bit sharp, a little bit precarious, and a little bit sticky. In the category for review of weight, maneuverability, and balance, the rifle does very well. The overall weight is relatively light, being a bolt-action rifle and with a synthetic stock. The overall length is relatively short, as we've mentioned, making it more maneuverable. And the center of balance is pretty good in the middle there. That makes it comfortable for holding, aiming. It's all in all a very comfortable rifle to hold. It does get a little bit front heavy with the bipod on it if you're shooting from a standing position. I will very briefly review the aesthetics of the rifle, as that is very subjective. For me, I think it is a good-looking rifle. It's a bit tactical or aggressive, but it's still got some nice, clean, and simple lines. The next category for review is the function of the rifle, starting with how the rifle aims. Aiming is good with the rifle as it comes from the factory with iron sights. The iron sights are pretty good, as all iron sights are only pretty good. The rear iron sight is adjustable for windage and elevation with a tiny little screwdriver. The front sight, again, Comes with the fiber optic for easier target acquisition. But of course, the rifle is intended to have a scope, which is why it comes with the rail on top of the receiver. The function of the trigger is excellent. As mentioned before, it is the LBA trigger. It has a very smooth action, a crisp snap feel when you squeeze it. I assume that this is Mossberg's answer to the Savage AccuTrigger. For the price of the rifle, I think it is an excellent trigger. The function of cycling was very poor before my quote-unquote farmer fix. I was having 20 to 25% of the rounds misfeed and get stuck before they would chamber, needing major adjustment, if not even extracting the entire round and trying to get the next one in. After the farmer fix, I get about 5% of the rounds sticky that need a minor shimmy or a millimeter or two of back and forth to get it to feed. I think that there's a gap between the top of the feed ramp and the breech that might be a little bit too large that causes issues. A feature that I like on the cycling, the cocking indicator on the back of the bolt is large and easily seen, so it gives you a second way of telling if the bolt has been cocked, coupled with the auxiliary safety on the trigger. The function of the rifle's actual firing is now very good after Mossberg fixed the bolt and the firing pin strike issues that it was having. The rifle can go through steel casings or brass casings, cheaper or better quality ammo. The gun will fire it all, no problems. The rifle's grouping is also very good. I am not an excellent shot, but at 150 yards, the grouping stays within an inch. I've shot out to 400, 450 yards. I would say it stays inside of 3 inches. We're just shooting clay pigeons out in the desert at that point. I think an expert shooter could truly show the gun's capability. Unfortunately, that is not me yet. The function of the rifle's takedown is very simple. There's only a few takedowns to it. Number one, obviously, is pulling the bolt out of the receiver with the bolt lock lever there. You can take the bolt apart by pulling this spring-loaded brushed steel point here backwards and rotating it counterclockwise to this next bigger groove. Then it takes some muscle to push that brushed steel point back even further to get it around the lever, and the whole bolt will come apart and you can get access to the striker assembly for cleaning or to get at the internals of the bolt head. The only other disassembly that you might want to do is to pull out the rear action screw and the front action screw to gain access to the adjustable trigger. The next category for review is the rifle's durability or battle readiness. And because of the issues explained, I am a little bit skeptical of the gun's ability to handle harder abuse. The materials in general I think are good. The synthetic stock feels like it's good quality. The weight and ruggedness of the barrel and the receiver feel good quality. The bolt seems rugged enough now that it's been fixed, but has quickly shown wear from the hammering on the back of the receiver, and it had broken that once before. The materials that stand out that were poor were the plastic magazine guide and a plastic trigger guard, which got a little crack where the rear action screw goes through it. The rifle's construction seems to be very durable, other than the problem with the bolt lever not being soldered well to the bolt housing. But all other facets of the rifle's construction seems very solid. Everything is machined and fitted well, and the rifle has given me zero issues since Mossberg has made the necessary fixes. The rifle now has around 500 rounds through it, and it performs just as it should. So this brings us to the last but not least category of the review, the value of the rifle. It's hard to say because this is such a subjective question. I paid around $535 for my rifle, and I think that is a moderate price for a very decent rifle after Mossberg made the few fixes. But it's your call if you're willing to spend that money on a rifle that may need some tweaks or a call to customer service. Some say the rifle isn't worth that much. But for me and my wife, we found it a lot of fun to shoot.